I fixed my calories. I fixed my fasting window. My weight finally started moving. And then it stopped again, at the exact same number, twice, weeks apart. Turns out I wasn't eating too much. I was eating protein at the wrong time, in the wrong amount, and in the wrong form. And I was quietly losing muscle, instead of fat, without realizing it, because the scale doesn't tell you what you actually lost. If you're fasting consistently, eating enough protein on paper, and still watching your body composition barely change month to month, this is probably why. Last video, I told you fasting isn't a metabolic cheat code. It's a tool that only works if what you eat inside the window is actually dialed in. I showed you the calorie side of that equation, matching intake to a real deficit instead of assuming the fasting clock does the work for you. A lot of you asked the obvious follow-up in the comments. Okay, so what do I actually eat? And when do I eat it? Fair question, and one most fasting content skips entirely. Most fasting content stops at eat protein. It doesn't tell you how much, when inside the window it matters most, what form it needs to take, or why getting this wrong can mean you lose muscle right alongside the fat, which quietly tanks your resting metabolism long after the diet ends, and makes the next attempt at losing weight even harder than the first one. So today, 3 protein timing mistakes almost everyone fasting makes. The actual reasoning behind why they wreck body composition, even when the scale looks fine, and the specific, concrete fix for each one. Mistake 1. As long as I hit my total protein for the day, timing doesn't matter. Total daily protein matters. That part isn't wrong, and I'm not walking that back. But during a fasting window, when you eat it, matters almost as much as how much you eat across the full day. Research on muscle protein synthesis consistently shows your body can only meaningfully use so much protein for repair and preservation in a single sitting, generally somewhere in the range of a palm to fist-sized portion, depending on body size and activity level. Anything well beyond that in one meal doesn't get saved for muscle the way people assume. It gets used for energy, stored, or simply isn't as useful for that specific purpose as spacing it out would be. Cramming your entire day's protein into one meal at the end of an eating window means long stretches, both during the fast itself and earlier in the eating window before that meal arrives, where your muscles have essentially no circulating amino acids available while you're sitting in a calorie deficit. And a calorie deficit is exactly the condition where your body is most looking for an excuse to break down muscle tissue for fuel instead of protecting it. For weeks I ate one big dinner, often 60+ grams of protein in a single sitting, and figured I was covered because the daily total looked fine on paper. My weight kept dropping steadily, which felt like proof it was working, but so did my strength in the gym, week over week, which I mostly ignored because the scale was moving. That's not what a successful cut is supposed to look like. Losing the number on the scale isn't the actual goal. Losing fat while keeping the muscle is, and those are 2 very different outcomes that can produce the same number. Splitting protein across 2 meals inside your window instead of 1 gives your body repeated opportunities to protect that muscle throughout the day, instead of one large opportunity followed by hours of nothing to work with. Transition. That mistake cost me strength for almost a month before I even noticed the pattern. The next one is the one that quietly stalls the number on the scale entirely. And it's the one nobody warns you about, because on the surface, it looks like you're doing everything right. Mistake 2. More protein always means more fat loss. This is where a lot of people overcorrect once they've internalized mistake number 1. Someone realizes protein timing matters, gets a little anxious about it, and assumes doubling their intake will double the results. It won't. And past a certain point, it can actively work against the exact thing you're trying to do. Protein still has calories, just like carbs or fat. It's not a free macro. If you're already eating an amount that maintains your deficit, stacking additional protein on top of that, instead of swapping it in for other calories, just erases the deficit that was making the fast effective in the first place. You end up eating clean your way, right out of a calorie deficit, without ever noticing, because protein feels like the safe, virtuous macro you don't need to think twice about. A palm-sized portion per meal, not a mountain of it, Not a double scoop stirred into everything, not a 12-ounce steak twice a day just because it's protein, is usually enough to protect and even build muscle without quietly overshooting your total calories for the day. More isn't automatically better once you've already hit an adequate amount. Quick question for you. Are you actually tracking your protein right now, or just eyeballing it and hoping it's somewhere close? Drop it in the comments. I want to know how many of you are flying blind on this exact number, because I was for months and genuinely thought I had it handled. Transition. Now here's the mistake that actually cost me the most time out of all three, and it's the one I was the most confident I had already figured out, which is exactly why it took so long to catch. Mistake 3. Breaking my fast with a protein shake is the smart move. This felt like the obvious, disciplined choice. Protein first, the moment the window opens, before anything else touches your plate. What could possibly go wrong with a move that sounds that responsible? The problem isn't the protein itself, it's the form it comes in. A fast-digesting, liquid-only meal spikes insulin quickly, gets absorbed fast, and leaves you with essentially nothing substantial sitting in your stomach 30 to 40 minutes later. There's no volume to it, no fat slowing digestion down, nothing signaling to your body that a meal actually happened. For a lot of people, that translates into feeling hungrier earlier in the eating window than they would have otherwise, which leads directly to snacking later in the day, quietly adding calories back in that undo the exact deficit the fast was designed to create in the first place. I did this for 3 weeks straight, shake first, real meal, roughly 2 hours later like clockwork, because it felt like the smart, efficient way to start the day. I felt hungry for almost the entire eating window and started grabbing extra snacks by mid-afternoon without really registering it as a pattern, let alone a problem worth examining. My weight barely moved for 2 full weeks, and I genuinely couldn't figure out why, because on paper my protein number and my calorie number both looked completely fine. The fix wasn't dropping the shake entirely. It was breaking my fast with a solid, whole food meal first. Eggs, or chicken with vegetables, something with actual volume and some fat alongside the protein, and saving the shake as a snack later in the window if I actually needed one, rather than leading with it every single day. Transition. So once I stopped guessing and just structured the window properly, instead of trying to optimize each piece of it in isolation, that's when things actually shifted. Here's exactly what changed once I put all 3 fixes together. 2 protein-anchored meals inside an 8-hour window, spaced apart instead of stacked into one sitting at the end of the day. A solid, whole food meal to break the fast, not a shake, not a bar, something with real volume and some fat in it. A palm-sized portion of protein per meal, not a scoop dumped on top of everything else just because it felt like the safe, easy choice. I didn't change my fasting window at all. I kept the same 16/8 I'd been using for months. No adjustments there. I didn't even add more protein overall. The daily total barely moved from what I'd already been hitting. I just moved it around and changed its form. My strength came back within 2 weeks in the gym, and my weight started moving again without me changing anything else about the diet at all. That's the part that surprised me most going through it. It wasn't a new rule, or a stricter one. It was structure applied to a rule I already technically had, just applied badly. Practical steps. Here's exactly what to do this week. Step 1. Split your daily protein across at least 2 meals inside your eating window, not one large meal at the end of the day. Step 2. Aim for a palm-sized portion per meal, not more, not less. Stop eyeballing it and actually check once so you know roughly what that looks like on your plate going forward without needing an app every time. Step 3. Break your fast with a solid, whole food meal first. Save shakes for later in the window as a top-up if you use them at all, rather than leading with one every day. Step 4. Don't add extra protein on top of your existing calorie target just because it's protein. Swap it in for other calories in that meal. Don't stack it on top of a total that was already working fine. Step 5. Give this 2 full weeks before judging whether it's working. One good day or one bad one tells you nothing about the actual trend, and daily fluctuations will mislead you if you check too often. None of this requires a stricter fast, a longer window, or more discipline than you already have. It requires structure. the boring, unglamorous part that never makes it into a thumbnail, but is usually the actual difference between people who get results and people who spin their wheels for months doing the same fast. Fasting gets you the window. What you do inside it is what actually determines whether you lose fat or just lose weight. And protein timing is the part almost every guide skips past on the way to something flashier and more clickable. If this changed how you think about your eating window, the next video breaks down the sleep mistake that's quietly undoing everyone's fasting results. Even when the food and the window are both completely dialed in and everything looks right on paper,